Hey, I'm your host, Joe Enders, and you're about to enter the Gauntlet. This is the world premiere and first episode. Get ready, everybody. It's about to get fiery. So, we have so many issues to talk about, but the first thing I'd like to do is give a little background information, more or less, on me and who I am. For the most part, I'd like to start off with, let's read the About Me section on the website, joeenders.com. Give it a visit. We got all kinds of great stuff on the website. We have a blog, news. You can contact us with any information, and we plan on having some guests on the show. We plan on doing all kinds of great stuff in the future. Now remember, this is just the beginning, so it's going to get nothing but better from here. But talk a little bit about me. This is what they have written on the website about me. Joe Enders is a true story of American success. Now only a college student, he has overcome homelessness, abuse, and poverty. He is now an activist for Turning Point USA and a campus coordinator for his school. He graduated with an associate's degree in arts with honors from the College of DuPage and is currently working towards his bachelor's in politics, economics, and philosophy at the King's College, a school at which a majority of his tuition was paid for in scholarships and grants, and will soon be graduated in May of 2018. Well-versed in politics, he successfully predicted the election of Donald Trump and even predicted him losing the popular vote. Joe believes his brand of right-wing politics is the future of America and the conservative movement. Joe has been rapidly gaining popularity in the young conservative movement, a frequent invitee of conservative activist conferences. He has met and engaged with some of the most important figures in politics. He is even mentioned in the book Time for a Turning Point by the founder of Turning Point, Charlie Kirk, and also co-authored by Brent Hamachek. So that's a little bit about me to kind of kick off the show, so you know who you're listening to, what it's about, and can go from there on whether you want to continue watching the show or not. Everybody wants to watch the show though, because I'm going to have some great news commentary for you, which brings me to my next thing. What our goal here at the Gauntlet is going to be our goal is going to be is basically to provide sort of a news commentary for conservatives, to reach out to, not just young conservatives, old conservatives, black conservatives, white conservatives, Hispanic conservatives, doesn't matter. We're just trying to reach out with some right-wing news commentary. This is a new thing. This doesn't really exist yet. There's a few shows that do radio shows or news reporting that may be considered conservative, but there's not really one yet that's a news commentary, especially on the internet, which I think is a huge resource that a lot of conservative media has completely been ignoring over these past few years. But moving on, we got a multitude of issues to talk about today. There has been so much going on in the news. Let's be honest. It's been quite a crazy, last few months. But we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the Russian hacking. We're going to talk about Barack Obama leaving office. We're going to talk about the absolute destruction of honesty in our media. And I'm going to provide some commentary on quite a few of these issues, and try to give you guys at least a little bit more context on the ridiculousness that's going on. I'd like to start off with the Russian hacking, because that's been something that's been really big that's been going on lately, and quite honestly has been completely blown hugely out of proportion by the media. But the first thing I'd like to do, on behalf of the American people, ignore Obama's action of removing 35 diplomats, Russian ambassadors, and putting sanctions on Russia. Thank you, Russia, if you were the ones behind the hack, which may or may not be true, for exposing corruption in our political system. You did a political party a blow. and gave the American people the truth, and which is something we desperately needed. You shouldn't be sanctioned. You should be given a gift for the great service that you've done this nation. How are we going to stand here and be upset with a country working in its own self-interest if they did hack the election, which there was no hacking of voting machines. There's no evidence of any of these things. The only evidence that they have is that there's a possibility that Russia was responsible for the hack of the DNC or the Democrat National Committee. But that's not an election. That's not the election. Everything they released is true. Everything that they said was, everything that came out of those Podesta emails, which they apparently hacked and leaked to rig our election, was crap. And not only that, in those Podesta emails, there were emails pointing to the Democrat Party rigging the election for Hillary Clinton. I mean, don't you think we had a right to know about this? Is there anything that Russia revealed to us that we would have preferred stay hidden until after the election? That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Let's try and zoom in on this. And not only that, I find it very hard to believe that Russia hacked Podesta's email, that it was Russia, that it was the Kremlin. Because, let's look into the facts of exactly how Podesta had his email hacked. First and foremost, he had his email. His password was password. I don't know about you guys, but my password is not password. That's the most obvious thing that any hacker would try when trying to get into my account is, well, I'm going to make my password password, or I'm going to make my password passcode, or something like that. Those are the first thing they're going to do. It is elementary to make your password password. Let's get real. And not only that, how they were able to get into his email was through malware. Malware is something that the user has to click on. Now, the malware he clicked on happened to be some sort of phishing advertisement that he decided to click on. This is showing more of Podesta's irresponsibility when it comes to his email server than it is Russia trying to rig our election in some convoluted scheme. The Kremlin has the power to hack, major military secrets from us. At least we think they are. There's been hundreds of cyber attacks against us. How in the world does it make sense for them to, instead of using this super advanced technology, to simply hack into Podesta's email, but instead go to this elementary, simplistic malware hack that a college student could do to get into the guy's email? Come on. Let's get real here. Do you really think, and I want the audience to be truly honest, do you really, really think that Russia is that stupid? I personally don't. Now, however, if the documents from the CIA are true and they did do it, I say shame on you to Russia, because wow, you are some just god-awful hackers. And there's no way you've been hacking major military documents or major classified information from us through your other cyber attacks in the past. That just doesn't add up. To say somebody in Russia, maybe a Russian citizen, maybe some Russian teenager sitting in his basement is like, hey, I want to mess with the U.S. today, is going to do it. That makes a little bit more sense, at least, to say, no, it came out of the country of Russia, but there's no real evidence that we have saying that the Russian government specifically ordered somebody to send a malware phishing advertisement to John Podesta to try to figure out that his password is password, hack the DNC, release information on Hillary Clinton, and elect Donald Trump the president. Now, I try to use logic quite often. That's what I subscribe to. I'm not a big fan of rhetoric, though I will use it because I know it works. Let's shout out to Machiavelli. But I'm not gonna. I mean, let's look at this logically. There's a logical fallacy called the slippery slope fallacy, which means the argument you're making is invalid. The slippery slope fallacy is when you say you have to go through all these turn of events to get. It's like, well, because war existed in the past, it's been a slippery slope downward. So because war exists, the nuclear bomb exists. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the first Stone Age caveman to throw a stone at the other caveman is responsible for the nuclear bomb. That's called the slippery slope fallacy. That's exactly what this entire issue is. To be perfectly honest about Russia hacking the election, our intelligence communities are really jumping the gun on what they know so far. At least it seems. Now, if there's more information that we don't have, because obviously I don't have top secret clearance, then so be it, and I'd love to see it. But as far as we know, and as far as the media knows, they don't. It's that simple. They don't know that Russia did it. They don't have access to the top secret and classified documentation on who hacked the server and who didn't hack the server. They just don't. And then the media is totally reporting on it because this is a perfect opportunity for them to jump on Donald Trump, jump down his throat, and delegitimize his presidency. Now, Joe, why would the media companies want to do that to him? Why would he do that to him? Simple. They're businesses. They're corporations. They're a lobby. I mean, think about it this way. If you had all your predictions aimed on someone else winning the presidential election, and you were wrong, and the expected results that you were trying to obtain did not happen, and you told everyone, condescendingly, I might add, that it was going to happen, then why exactly would you not go on the offensive after, beyond all odds, you were proven to be lying and wrong the entire election season? That's going to lose money. That's going to decrease profits. That makes you look bad. So what's the next step? We're going to do whatever we can to delegitimize his presidency. We're going to do whatever we can to make him look like the worst president ever. We're going to report on him to be the worst president ever, so that in hindsight, we can get up and we can say, we were right, guys. We tried to tell you. We tried to tell you, and we were right. Listen to us. That's why the media is going after Donald Trump. Fairly obvious. Now, moving on, I think it's very funny, this election season, regarding Donald Trump, how hypocritical the left has become. We have seen the same people that occupied Wall Street, the same people who are diehard feminists, who oppose rape, right? Yeah, rape is bad. And I think we all agree that. I believe rape is bad. And those who, how do I say it? Simply stand around and protest daily on tolerance. They had the nerve to support Hillary Clinton this entire election season. Someone who was first and foremost bought off by every Wall Street bank. 2, vehemently supported free trade until she was running for president. She called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, by the way, a trade proposal that is projected to send 1 million jobs overseas, the gold standard of trade deals. The gold standard. And by the way, that I know she doesn't like the gold standard as it pertains to the economy, but we'll get into that later. Donald Trump does, though. But she does mean that in a positive way. So it's a gold standard of trade deals. Yeah, it's great. And not only that, her husband was the one that signed NAFTA, a trade deal that is responsible for the loss of 5 million Manufacturing jobs. 5 million. Because you know why? What company would prefer to do labor in a country with a 35% corporate tax rate? Right? Why, who would? Who would want that? That makes no sense. 35% corporate tax rate, and they have to deal with, those super evil union workers, which, by the way, Hillary Clinton also turned her back on this election cycle, who negotiate pay that actually provides them with a living and good benefits. So why would they stay here when they could go to Mexico, or they could go to China, or they could go to South Korea, or they could go to Japan, where they can pay their workers $4 an hour? And in the case of China, $2 an hour. Or let's say even Saudi Arabia, where they sometimes have slaves doing their work. So unpaid workers, people that make nothing doing their work. How are you going to support this woman? By the way, Saudi Arabia is a country that was very much backing Hillary Clinton. That's another thing. Aren't you guys supposedly against homophobia? How are you going to be against homophobia and support the candidate that's getting these donations from a country that literally is known for throwing gay people off of buildings just for being gay? And not only that, you want to escalate it even further by increasing immigration of Syrian refugees, another place where they throw gays off buildings, because you know why? ISIS is there. And bring them and relocate them into communities with American homosexual citizens and expect there to be no conflict? So who do you care about? Do you really care about gay people? She wanted to increase Syrian refugees by 500%. You're telling me that there's not at least a few ISIS members in that mix trying to come in? And do you really think that a goat herder that decided to join ISIS you can put them through some sort of vetting process and know who they are? You're not going to know who they are. There's no record of their existence. So, I mean, that's really hypocritical. It is. It's so hypocritical that they would believe something like this. And then the best thing is being anti-war. Hillary Clinton wanted to put a no-fly zone over Syria, basically saying anybody who flies anything in Syrian airspace is going to be shot down by the United States military. Shot down by the United States military. Guess who's there right now, guys? Russia. Russia's there right now. And by the way, they're doing a far more effective job fighting ISIS than we are. Far more effective job. Oh, but Assad's there, and Assad's bad. Yes, Assad's bad. We know Assad's bad. He used chemical weapons against his people. Horrible human rights violations, right? Yeah, I get it. It's bad. He's not a good guy. However, ISIS killed 12,000 people in a month. In a month. I'm sorry, but there is absolutely no way that Assad is worse than ISIS. There's no way. When he was in power, people actually made money. In the current state, with the rebels, the city has been leveled to ash. All that infrastructure, all that business, all that economic gain flushed down the toilet. All in the name of an Islamic caliphate that hates gay people. Now, that's not the only thing they hate. They also hate Christians. They hate Jews. They hate Western civilization. And a slew of other things all of us love. But they hate. So you want to, go and just flat out bring them here indiscriminately? Or not, even discriminately, for that matter. I mean, even if we did bring them indiscriminately, it wouldn't matter, because we're never going to know what their true intentions are. We're never going to know that if we bring in more people from a different faith into this country, that they won't be radicalized by ISIS from overseas. Now, I don't hate Muslims. I hate Islam. I don't That's my key. I don't blame people. I blame ideas. That's the best way to put it. I blame people who preach bad ideas. I blame ISIS because I think that ISIS is Islam practiced in its truest form. It's practiced the way Muhammad practiced Islam. He beheaded people. He ordered stonings. He subscribed to Sharia law, a law that's completely incompatible with the Constitution. And most, not most, I should say, but in the Muslim world, you're looking at statistics where, 35%, 45% believe that Sharia law should be the law of the land. I don't want that here. I don't want I don't want there to be 4 male witnesses required for a legitimate rape. I also don't want the death penalty for apostates. An apostate is somebody who chooses to leave the Islamic religion and join the other one. I don't want the jizya tax for non-Muslims. I don't believe in that, and I don't think that can be believed in within our country, because we have constitutional freedoms that protect us from such things. So to say that, and the other problem I have is to say that Muslims aren't going to be more easily radicalized by Islamic terrorism across the seas isn't more likely than a Christian of any color, creed, or race. I mean, to say that that's not more likely for the Muslim to get radicalized than the regular Christian guy is just stupid. Of course the Muslim's more likely to be radicalized. That's a no-brainer. Now, I'm not saying they all will be, and I'm not saying that Muslims aren't good people as well. One time my car broke down on the side of the road, and there was a lot of Christians that drove by. But you know who got out and helped me? It was a group of young Muslim men that literally pushed my car with me up a hill to a gas station. I don't see bad people when I see that. I see an act of kindness, an act of selflessness, an act of goodness, as Jews would say, a mitzvah. But to say that in a mosque where there's actually been cases of radical imams radicalizing people in their mosques, or that somebody from a country that we've had a history of being at war with is less likely or just as little likely to be radicalized by ISIS within the country is just a silly statement. And even more so, somebody from that country that is a refugee here is saying that they're angry at Assad and they see ISIS fighting off Assad. You really think that they're not going to hear ISIS propaganda and to be more inclined to commit acts of terror or to stand against the West as we take them in as refugees? Or that they're not going to blame America for all their problems, which they do anyways? Most Muslims are not very fond of the United States, and they think that the United States has done horrible actions in the Middle East, which we may have. We probably shouldn't have gone to Iraq. I agree with that statement. I think it was a waste of time. I think that we had nothing to gain from going there. We didn't take any oil back. We didn't make the war profitable. We destroyed the land. We tried to sit there and tell them what kind of government's going to work best for them. I mean, that is simply not a sound strategy. It's just not. I can't stress enough how dangerous it's going to be to take in refugees, because these are all people that will be far more easily radicalized than any American citizens would be. Like it or not, a Muslim is more likely to be radicalized by other Muslims than Christians are to be radicalized by Muslims. Because Christians don't believe what Muslims believe. And this has nothing to do with me hating Muslims. I don't hate them. I want to keep them safe. I want them to be safe in their own countries. I don't want ISIS to exist anymore. I want them to live in a country and be as happy as I am in my country. But ISIS is not the answer. And bringing them into the United States is not the answer. That's not going to make Syria better. They're running away instead of solving their problems. And not only that, you think there's a reason that Saudi Arabia, Iran, Jordan, Jordan took in some, I guess, but won't, or Palestine. Why aren't they taking refugees in? Well, because they're worried too. Because ISIS is known to cause problems and commit terrorist attacks. I mean, ISIS is committing terrorist attacks in Turkey. Why would Turkey want to take in Syrian refugees? Why would any of them want to take in Syrian refugees? I don't see why they would want that. And so the cultures that they would actually assimilate far better in won't even take them in. Yet here's the West taking in people that are easily radicalized, or more easily radicalized. I'm going to use the analogy Donald Trump Jr. used when talking about the Syrian refugee situation. America is a bowl of Eminems, and in our bowl of Eminems, we have, poisoned M&Ms, some that are bad. If you eat them, you'll die. That's simple. I mean, we do have bad eggs here. I mean, look at Dylan Roof, that disgusting piece of garbage, decided to walk into a church under racist intentions and shoot a bunch of African Americans for absolutely no reason. Scumbag, death penalty, good night. Which he received, by the way. I don't know if you guys had heard. I hope he suffers in prison very much and learns, because he's going to. But I'd like to just point out that in no way should we add more poisoned M&Ms to our bowl. We shouldn't, because the more poisoned M&Ms there are, first off, the more other M&Ms they contaminate and poison, right? And second of all, you don't want terrorist attacks in the United States. You don't want more. And they're like, oh, but there's domestic terrorists. I'm like, okay, so there's already domestic terrorists. Why the hell would you want to add more? That doesn't make any sense. We should be cautious. We have a right to say who can and can't come into our country. It's not about freedom of religion. I care deeply about freedom of religion. You have the freedom to practice whatever religion you choose in this country as a citizen. What happens outside of our borders is not relevant. We have the discretion to let in who we want and who we don't want. Let me give an example. If we don't want people with glasses coming into our country because, I don't know, we don't like people with glasses, we should be able to say, no, we don't like you. You have glasses on. You can't come in. There's no constitutional protections for these people coming into, thinking that somehow they have a right to come into our country, as if they own it, as if they have constitutional rights. If they want constitutional rights, they should fight for it in their own country, get it for themselves. Now, I know I sound selfish right now, but I think the real selfish thing is that the Islamic community fails to use basic reason to figure out why we're not letting them in. We're not letting them in because we hate them. Let me make that perfectly clear. We are not saying no because we hate them, we don't like Muslims. We're saying no because we understand that there is an inherent danger in letting in people from a country full of our enemies in. There's consequences of that. Look at Paris. Look at the Boston bombing. Look at the Pulse nightclub shooter, a former ambassador, I believe, to Afghanistan or some other Middle Eastern country. I believe it was Afghanistan. Don't quote me on that. I mean, seriously, our countrymen are dying at the hands of some of these people. Why would we add more? Oh, because it'd be nice, and because a lot of them are just women and children. Well, the San Bernardino shooter, one of them, was a woman. And if I remember properly, in the Middle East, during the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, a common jihadist tactic would be strapping bombs to their children and sending them out to blow up soldiers. Sickening. It's absolutely sickening. It's barbaric. Now, not all Muslims would do this. I'm not saying all Muslims would do this, but there are Muslims that will try to infiltrate the refugee population because it's the smart thing to do if you're trying to fight the United States. That will. And we have to take precautions. That is not our fault that we have to take precautions. We have to take precautions because there's actually people that exist in your culture, Syria, in your culture, Afghanistan, in your culture, Iraq, where people do those things, where they hate the West, where they say death to America, Iran. There's reason we use discretion when we have people coming into our country, because there are certain people we do not want in our country because they want to kill us. Now, I don't understand why there's this huge misunderstanding about this. Who is to blame? Is it us for using discretion and taking note of the obvious death that's taking place in your countries? Or is it the radical jihadists that have labeled you that way that are to blame? Now, I'd like everybody to take a second and realize that. Realize who's actually to blame. Moderate Muslims? There's your answer to your question. You should be mad at ISIS. You should be fighting ISIS. You should not be fighting against Assad. You should be fighting against every single person that makes us distrust you as Muslims to come into our country. Because we will use discretion, and if you're labeled an enemy of the United States, we don't have to let you in, nor will we. Here's a reality check. Muslim world. I would love peaceful people in my country to do business, to participate in free enterprise, to exercise all the constitutional freedoms I enjoy on a daily basis. However, in order to come into this country, you're going to have to make some changes to your culture to make sure that we know that you are not going to come into our country and kill us, like other members of your population have. Now, it's not fair that you've been labeled that way. But you haven't been labeled that by the United States. You've been labeled that by ISIS. They have given you this label. They have given you this stigma. So go and change it. I'll tell you what, if there was a group of radicals going around killing people, blowing themselves up, burning down buildings, fighting a war against a free government in support of religious tyranny, I'm locked and loaded. Why aren't you? That's an important question. That's an important question. It really is. Anyways, we need to move on. Aggravating to me, the whole Syrian refugee crisis. I'd like to actually move on to some little happier note. Let me take a drink real quick. So, Trump, as a president-elect, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, has done more for the United States than any president-elect in history. He has been threatening corporations. He's like, come back to the U.S. or expect a big tax to come in. He's saving manufacturing jobs. His job with Carrier saved a bunch of jobs. He made a deal with GM that saved a bunch, or was it Ford? I think it was Ford, where he saved a bunch of jobs. I mean, and here's a funny thing. Let's look at the media bias on the coverage of Trump too. GM makes a statement and comes out and says cars that Trump claims are Mexican made are actually made in Ohio. This is regarding him threatening General Motors to come back to the U.S. What the Hill negates to report, mind you. Hold on, I just lost it. I'm going to go find it again. Let's see. Hate when that happens. Somebody needs to explain to the Hill that manufacturing and assembly aren't the same thing. Now, most American cars are assembled in the United States. That's actually changing. A lot of them are being outsourced. But let's go under that premise that a lot of jobs in the United States, in the auto industry, are usually assembly. You assemble the cars in the United States. However, the Hill, I'd like to point out that all the smelting, all the fabrication, the stamping, and the casting are done not in the United States, but in either Mexico, China, or any of these other, any of these other major, countries that are become the world's manufacturing giants. So, we're sitting here allowing other people to, how would you say it? Take advantage of us. But why? Why is that okay? And why is the Hill reporting as if they're made in America, when in fact a majority of the parts are not made in America? America has the best steel in the world. Why aren't we making it here? We could be making far more efficient cars. The answer is we don't make it marketable. We do not make it marketable to sell cars, to manufacture cars. We charge our corporations a 35% corporate tax rate, as I mentioned earlier. And on top of that, we refuse to tariff any country that's paying their workers at a rate that is simply non-competitive with the United States. It's just non-competitive. So we're going to have to make it competitive. Now, a common argument made by a lot of the pro-free trade people are, prices are going to go up. Okay, yeah, prices are going to go up. No, that's a proven fact. If you raise the cost of labor, if you raise the production costs, companies are going to respond with higher prices. Fine. I think that higher prices are a reasonable price to pay to have Americans working again. I don't know about you. We have 92 million people out of the workforce right now. 92 million. That's a lot. There's 320 million people in the United States. 92 million are out of work? Or not working? That's just insane. Our labor participation rate is horrible right now. I believe it's 62%. That's bad. That is really bad. We need to get people back to work. And some people say the option is, we need to make college free so everyone can go to college and everybody can have a good life. Well, that's not how it works. College isn't for anybody. College is very difficult. Very difficult. So it's like, that's why we should do free community college. Why? The people that are good enough to make it through college usually can get it all paid for with scholarships. Or at least half of it paid for. Or at least enough of it paid for in order for it to be affordable for you. You're not entitled to some beautiful education at Harvard. You're not entitled to a private school. You're not entitled for a liberal arts degree. To be honest, you're not entitled to college, period. What we can do, though, if we really want to help people and we really want people making a living again, it's not just making them super smart, not making them go to college and take gender studies courses or majoring in basket weaving. That's not going to help the economy. What's going to help the economy is to get back entry-level, low-skilled labor jobs where people can actually make a living. And the only field that's capable of doing that is manufacturing. Now, Barack Obama likes to brag about his job creation. Well, if we look into it further, with his passage of Obamacare, a lot of people were dropped from their employer insurance policies, and a lot of them also had their hours cut and became part-time employees. So to boost his numbers, we now have Americans working 2 jobs. So he didn't really create jobs. He just split jobs in half to make his numbers look better. And then, on top of it, he moved forward to stimulate the economy. What he did was he uses the Federal Reserve Bank to print more money and lower interest rates to prop up the stock market to make it look like we've left a recession. I can tell you one thing. I've lived through the entire Obama years, and I was of working age for more than half of it. It's no easier to get a job than it was during the recession right now, and I think there's a lot of Americans that can attest to that. So why is it that our unemployment rate is at, 5.4% or something right now? Why is our unemployment so low? Well, first off, discouraged workers, people that have stopped looking for a job. Those aren't included in the statistic. That's why I look at labor participation. With labor participation, you get a really good idea of how many workers are actually unemployed. The other problem we have is the baby boomers are retiring. This is a large generation. It's a very large generation. A lot of them are retiring very young, too. A lot of them are getting Social Security now. It's coming to a point where that's becoming very expensive. That's another problem. How we fix that? That's a good question. There's the option of switching it to a private organization. There's the option of paying into it to make it solvent again. But to be perfectly honest, the main issue is that the government thinks it's okay to dip into our Social Security and steal our money and spend it all and say, oh, sorry guys, I owe you. And then every time the IOU comes in, it's like, wow, we don't have any money. Simple answer, print more money. Print more money, and then from there, do your thing, I guess. Print more money, lower interest rates, prop up the stock market, make it look like things are better, push the problem down the rug, and then receive the blowback if you're the next generation, basically. Congratulations, millennials. It's your problem now. Bye-bye. That's not going to work for us. I'm a millennial. I don't approve of that. I don't want that to be the case. That is not my America. I shouldn't have to pay for the mistakes of my father or my grandfather. I can't honestly understand how people think that's okay to think about. But moving on. This was interesting. A teacher actually posted something on the board, or on the wall at school. She wrote down on 6 pieces of paper. She wrote down, and I'm going to read this to you guys right now. This is hilarious. She's like, "Dear black students, in this classroom, your life matters." Way to go, buddy. "Dear LGBTQ plus students, your life is beautiful and allowed to expand past fake social rules." Fake. "Dear Latino students, you are not rapists or drug dealers." Fair enough. "Dear Muslim students, you are not terrorists." Well, I sure would hope so. "Dear female students, men cannot grab you." "Dear undocumented students, in this classroom, there are no laws." Undocumented students, illegal immigrants, criminals. There are no walls in this classroom, my friend. Let's go through this again. I made my own little wall, by the way. On my wall, I have a little bit of a different philosophy. I said, "Dear black students, your life doesn't matter when you attack police officers trying to arrest you." And just a hint, P.S., it doesn't if you're white either. "Otherwise, we all agree that your life is no less valuable than anybody else's." Right? Yeah, I think I do. I think black lives matter, white lives matter, Hispanic lives matter, and Muslim lives matter even. All lives matter. Right? No, wait, I can't say all lives matter. I forgot. That's racist. Okay. "Dear LGBTQ people, you are made in God's image and beautiful. But you should be free to make any bad choice you want. As long as it doesn't harm others anyways. Including gay sex, genital mutilation, and cross-dressing. Hell, put a door knocker on your nose for all I care. But one thing I ask. Don't ask me for help when you enter corporate America and people think you're a weirdo." That's simple. Nobody wants a green-haired, cross-dressing transgender woman that was once a man working at their corporation. Why? Because it makes most people uncomfortable. And you have to be an entrepreneur. You have to talk to people. You have to interact with people. And if people are uncomfortable around you, you have to conform. You have to conform to corporate life to make yourself marketable to other people. That's why if I'm going into a job interview, I do this little thing called shaving. I can't have this big old nasty beard when I go in for a job interview. Why? Well, because I have to conform. Welcome to capitalism. Welcome to the United States. If you don't want to do that and you can't find a job, Oh well, Crimea River, it's your fault. It's your fault. I don't know what to tell you. Dear Latino students, no one ever called you drug dealers or rapists. Because I know what they're referencing. They're representing Donald Trump's statement about illegal immigrants, which was qualified as like Mexico is not sending their best. Mexico is not sending their best. Meaning there is a whole nother slew of people in the country of Mexico that are doing the sending of these people. Now, who are these people? Obviously, probably Mexican citizens. Some of them actually aren't. Some of them are Guatemalan. Some of them are illegal immigrants in Mexico, illegally immigrating to the United States. Whoever they're sending people. Whoever they're sending. And all of them cross the border illegally, making them illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants. So he's not talking about Mexicans. He's said on multiple occasions that he loves the Mexican people. If he was trying to garner hate, why would he say that he loves the Mexican people? That doesn't even make sense. Unless you want to say, oh, he's just lying. I'm like, well, based on the amount of Mexicans he has hired and working for him, I would say that he doesn't hate them. He thinks, Trump's a businessman. He likes what's profitable. That's profitable. Latinos work very hard. However, they have to be citizens of this country in order to work here. So we need to tighten our immigration laws and secure the border. It has nothing to do with Mexicans. It has nothing to do with Latinos. He never said anything about Latinos. And then he goes on to say, some, I assume, are good people. So not only that, he still operates under the assumption that some Mexicans, or not even some Mexicans, some illegals, some illegal immigrants coming in from Mexico are good people. So now we're going to the point at which he's talking about bad people that are illegal immigrants are criminals and drug dealers. What's the problem? Are you saying that are you trying to defend the bad people that illegally crossed our border, committed the crime of illegal immigration? Are those bad people? Are the bad people that did that the criminals, the drug dealers, and the rapists maybe? Are you trying to defend them? Teacher, I'm confused. Moving on. Dear Muslim students, as long as you don't support the terrorist wing of your religion, we have no problems. And obviously I'm talking about people that are citizens of this country. But if you want to make my country Islamic, or if you want Sharia enforced, get the hell out of my country. I don't want you here if you're a jihadist. I don't want you here if you want to lobby for Sharia law in my country. I don't want anybody that violates the Constitution in my country. I personally believe that you shouldn't be here if you want to undermine the Constitution. Now, I'm not saying you don't have a right to be. I'm saying that you should get the hell out of my country and go to a country that is more sympathetic to your views, because you'll probably have more success there than you will here, because we're pretty hard-headed here, and we're not going to have our freedoms taken away by some Sharia-loving jihadist. Dear female students, this is my message to all female students, by the way. Not all females, actually. If someone grabs you without consent, I will grab them too, by the neck, until they die. I have no tolerance for rape. I have no tolerance for sexual assault. I have no tolerance for pedophilia. I will not allow a woman to be taken advantage of. And trust me, Plato talks about this thing called a tripartite soul. There's a part of that soul. One of the parts is spiritedness. This spiritedness in the soul is when you act without thought, when you just do something, when something you see is so just inherently disgusting that you can't help but go into an uncontrollable fit of rage and try to terminate the problem. That's how I feel when somebody grabs a woman or tries to rape a woman or tries to hit a woman or tries to do anything to them, because it's a natural instinct, because women are not supposed to be treated that way. Have some chivalry, men. And women, don't accuse us of things that we're not doing, because most men hold the same view I do. We will hurt a man if we see them hurting a woman or trying to sexually assault a woman. It doesn't click well with us. We have this part of our soul. It's just the spirited part of our soul, as Plato put it, where we just go into a fit of rage. We can't stand it. And anyone who doesn't, I feel bad for you. Time to grow up and grow a pair. But anyways, for our last little poster, Mr. Teacher, we have, "Dear undocumented students, get out of my country. I don't want you here. You're criminals of the law. You're fugitives of the law. You came to this country illegally. If your parents brought you here, that sucks. It really does. Because you know what? In America, we have to pay. We sometimes have to pay, and we shouldn't, by the way. We shouldn't have to pay, but we do, for the actions of our parents. Let's say my mother is a crackhead. I have to deal with that. And the government's not going to, the government's not going to come and save me as long as she is, and I have to live with that. If let's say she lies to the police, I have to live with that. I still have to live with my mother being a crack dealer. I have to live with my parents being lazy and unemployed. I have to live with all these things. I have to live with it if my father is absent. So if your parents illegally bring you over the border and make you a criminal, and you get deported, once again, don't get mad at the United States. We're simply enforcing our immigration laws. Get mad at your parents for doing what they did to you. So, moving on, once again, I'd like to talk about the 4 black teens, 2 of which were women, 2 of which were men, that thought it was okay. By the way, this happened like 30 minutes from my house in Illinois. Terrible. They kidnapped this kid and tortured him. And this was a special needs child. This wasn't a, just regular, happy-go-lucky, or this wasn't just a regular guy who was, like maybe intimidating them or like being rude to them and honestly, I don't think that matters. The point is, they weren't provoking. He wasn't provoking them. They were friends with him, actually. Or one of them was. I think 1 or 2 of them were friends. And the women actually said, "Oh, it would be funny if we kidnapped him." And in this kidnapping, they're like, F Donald Trump. They're like, F white people. Sounds like a hate crime to me. And by the way, it is going to be a hate crime because that was an act of hatred. Hatred of white people, hatred of Donald Trump supporters. Both. Because it was explicitly said in the video. And they just had to post it live on Facebook, too, for everybody to see how disgusting and how awful that is. I have a sister that's special needs. And for God's sakes, it really upsets me when I hear something like that. It just really drives me nuts. It's completely unfair and completely unacceptable. The fact that people like this exist in the world just really drives me up a wall. Because you know what? And then not only that, then the media dares. They dare say that this wasn't a hate crime because it was hatred of Donald Trump supporters, not white people. They were quoted saying F white people in the freaking video. What else could it be besides attacking him because he's white? Oh, well, you have to qualify that is because he's white and a Donald Trump supporter. Well, they didn't say that. They said F you for supporting Donald Trump, and then they also said F you white people. As if white people are the problem. They hate white people. Hate crime. Now, personally, I don't believe in hate crimes. I don't believe that you should tack that on to anything. I believe that a crime is a crime. And if you want to give somebody more time because you think they're a danger to society, you can do that. However, you don't need to label it something. You need to call it a hate crime. I mean, that's like free speech monitoring. I don't believe in hate crimes. I believe in crimes. And I think I think every act is a crime. Just because racism was involved doesn't change the fact that the crime occurred. And it shouldn't add more or less to it. I think that's a choice that the judge has to make, not something that the law has to clarify. But that's just my personal view. I don't see it. I don't see how this could be described any other way. Actually, Don Lemon on CNN actually said that. By the way, this is a reporter who was found drunk stumbling out of a bar. There's videotapes of it too. You should go check it out. Completely ridiculous. But anyways, yeah, I mean, he says that these were products of their environment and troubled youth, and how they're just misunderstood. Shut up, Don Lemon. These kids are evil, and most black people think that these kids are evil. And like there was a reporter that went into Chicago and started talking to people in the ghetto. A lot of the people in the ghetto, and a lot of people in the ghetto, a lot of these people that live poor and underprivileged lives said that they want to shoot these people. It's like, I would shoot the shit out of them. That's how they responded to this horrific act. What are you talking about, Don Lemon? Black people don't even agree with you. You're an idiot. You were just an idiot for making such an argument. It was completely a hate crime. A lot of black liberals agree that it was a hate crime. Let it go down as a hate crime. And not only that, this is going to set the precedent for the future as well. So that when African Americans indiscriminately attack white people for being white, that we can look forward and actually take it seriously as a hate crime. Or we can get so sick of tacking hate crimes on every little thing that goes on that every time a confrontation between a white person and a black person, or a white person, Hispanic, white person, and a Muslim goes on, that a hate crime has to be even in consideration, and they just decide to dump the whole process in general because it's stupid. It's stupid. You don't need more time because it was racist. If you kidnap someone and torture someone, I don't care if it's about race or not about race. You kidnapped and tortured someone. The motives are irrelevant. You need to go to jail. And there shouldn't be any more or less punishment. There should just be punishment for it. I mean, let's think about this. Does it matter? Is the guy who kidnapped and tortured somebody not for racist reasons somehow, is he better? I mean, I think it's the same thing. He kidnapped somebody and tortured them. And by the way, I've heard an argument on the left about the three high school boys who kidnapped who didn't kidnap anybody, but they took him into the locker room, a special needs African American gentleman, and raped him with a coat hanger. That's absolutely disgusting. It is. It's completely disgusting. However, from what I understand, there is not any link to them saying that this was because of race. So do what you will with that. However, I don't think that it should matter. I think that the punishment should be the same regardless. The only difference is that this was revolving around minors. From what I understand, these people were not minors. They were adults. So the precedents set are different. Now, these kids didn't get jail time, and I think that that's wrong, and I think they should have gotten jail time. However, you cannot possibly say that this is the exact same incident, because these were high school kids. I believe they were football players that did this to another kid, and this was done at school. These were people that led a man off the street into a house, tied him up, cut his scalp, beat him, and yelled racial slurs at him. Adults that did this, from what I understand. So how exactly are we going to say that that this should be handled the same way? It's basically minors handling something versus adults handling something. Now, for me personally, it doesn't matter, but to a judge, there may have been an argument presented that did make it matter. The thing that we all need to consider is that we can't always jump straight to race. It could be something else. It could always be something else. And consider that. Just consider it. Anyways, I really appreciate doing the show with you guys. You can check us out on YouTube, Stitcher Radio, iTunes. We're going to have it all up. Get ready, guys. You've entered the Gauntlet. This is Joe Enders signing off for today. Get ready.